Some of you have become familiar with my brother, Anthony Carnesi, as I've used his music in different videos. He was an incredible man and a beautiful brother, special, very special. And as you may recognize, we lost him in 2005 to cancer. But he is very present with us in many ways, helping us and guiding us, and we feel his love and care. I ran across this article that he had written and put in the newspaper, the local newspaper, in 1994. And I felt convicted that it needed to be shared. And I prayed about it. I've been praying about it, and I felt that I needed to do it somehow, some way. And so I put this together, and I pray that it blesses and convicts if need be, and strengthens all of us in our zeal for prayer, especially in the divine will to end this slaughter of the unborn. But my brother wrote an incredible song that I'm going to play at the end, called Also Innocent. Very powerful song. And I pray again that will bless you as well. I wish so much that I had my brother speaking this, but it's just me expressing what he had in his heart. My sisters, two of my sisters and my mom and my brother and I had a prayer group for a number of years. We met every week and prayed and laughed and cried and shared a meal together, and it was just an incredible time. And we were doing the Married Movement of Priests, Cynical, and then when I found out about the Divine Will, we changed to the Divine Will, and we would read and study that. But he got sick, and everything changed. But all four of us, the girls, my other sister as well, we're all now striving to live all of our life in the Divine Will. And I know our brother in heaven is helping us, as well as this little baby, Evan Michael. And you will hear about him. Death of infant son leads to time of deep reflection. TSC board member resigns to pursue new course in life, by Anthony Carnesi. Having been elected by members of his community to serve on the Board of Trustees of Texas Southmost College was an honor I shall not forget. Based on the trust placed in me, I feel it important to explain why I have resigned. Were there problems at the college that influenced my decision to leave? No, there were not. The difficulties we faced as a board were seen as challenges to be overcome in order to continue the advance of higher educational opportunities for this region. Working with the personnel of TSC and UTB gave me a great respect for the abilities and dedication of the many fine people there. So what was it that induced me to leave? As I explained to the board as fully as I could at the time, the decision to go was based on a series of events that began with the birth of our son, Evan Michael, in April 1994. Evan was born with a chromosome disorder which had interfered with his natural development in the womb and threatened to take him away from us at any minute after his birth. But much of his life was spent in hospitals or at home, connected to medical equipment designed to allow him to continue living. Our son suffered greatly, and we with him, being unable to ease his suffering. We were often unsure whether we should pray that he live or that he might die and be released from the pain that he was in. His situation was not one we would have chosen for ourselves, and yet, despite the turmoil, despite the anguish, we came to love Evan deeply. Actually, it was easy, for Evan loved us, and every member of our family was touched by his love. It was love that shone in his eyes at some of the most tragic moments and in some of the most peaceful. His eyes could communicate from the limitations of words, touching hearts, teaching truth of what life was really about. And through Evan, my life began to change. Evan taught me a great deal. He taught me that I was in a business that I had no desire to be in, which, although providing a good living, was not and could never prove fulfilling for me. He taught me that my values in life were based to a great extent on what others thought of me, and were actually quite valueless because they were so unfounded on heartfelt conviction. I imagine some will have difficulty understanding how a baby could transmit ideas like this. Sadly, I find no words adequate to explain the beautiful phenomenon by which Evan expressed himself. But through his eyes, Evan spoke to my soul, teaching me things which no one else could, gently reminding me that God had a plan for me, as He does for everyone, and showing me that my life did not resemble that plan. He helped me see that if I wanted to live in a way that would lead to true happiness, I would need the courage to stop comparing myself to others and to start living by what I knew in my heart. In short, my son taught me that becoming a man of integrity was my calling. Evan died the same year he was born. He was almost 8 months old. By that time, we had all grown to love him so much that we wanted more than anything else for him to live. And yet, we could see God's hand at work in having allowed us to know Evan, even if for such a short time. Emerging from the grief of Evan's death, I was faced with a choice of honoring the truths that he had taught me or returning to my life as it was prior to his birth. I decided to try to honor him. In short, I sold my business and began looking for what God might be calling me to. But then, sometime after Evan's death, a new occurrence shattered another once peaceful area of my life. To understand what occurred requires taking the story back even further in time, to when I was younger, single, a rock musician with little regard for God, or much of anything else that didn't bring me gratification. In 1980, sometime after the breaking off a relationship with a woman I believed I loved, I received a call from her saying she had become pregnant during our time together and that she intended to have an abortion. At the time, since we were no longer together as a couple, and since I was unwilling to accept the responsibility of raising a child by myself, I agreed to the abortion. It was a decision I lived with for years with no problem. But then one day, about a year after Evan's death, as I was evaluating the progress I was making in changing my life, a strange thing happened. I was struck with a dilemma I couldn't resolve. On one hand, I had fought with every fiber of my being, trying to save the life of my son, who because of his frailty had so little chance to survive. On the other hand, I had readily agreed to the killing of another child, also mine, an unborn baby, whose chance for survival were, in all probability, excellent. How could I reconcile this in light of what I had learned from Evan about the beauty and value of life, even when suffering is involved? I discovered, in fact, that I couldn't rationalize, couldn't wish it away, couldn't pretend any longer that it was not a big deal. The only thing I could do was admit to myself that I had made a terrible mistake. I had permitted my own child to be killed. I had chosen the path of least responsibility, abortion. This insight struck me with a force I cannot describe, perhaps much as it does one who, on the point of dying, sees his life flash before his eyes. It was the kind of realization there was no arguing with. So clearly and powerfully did it present itself. I saw a picture of my life filled with the bad decisions I'd made, culminating in agreeing to the abortion of my own baby. And this picture of the person I had once been, the evil that was part of my life, literally crushed me. I cannot express the sadness that enveloped me. Some years after the abortion, after my return to the Catholic religion, I had confessed the abortion to a priest, aware as I was that in the eyes of the church it was a most serious sin. Nevertheless, I was now overwhelmed by this new insight as I finally understood the gravity of what I had done. In an effort to work my way out of the state I found myself in, I prayed to God that since I couldn't bring back my child, He show me what I could do to make up for my wrongs. The decision produced no immediate changes in me. There was no thunder and lightning, no voice from the burning bush. But little by little, God began letting me know what He expected of me, speaking to me in my heart. Each day that I put myself in His hands, I began having little insights, leading me to understand some of what He was asking of me. First, to live as a man of integrity, which meant to be willing to admit my wrongs and make up for them. Second, to become free from any obligation that would require my silence on issues that deserve no silence. To be willing to say that abortion is wrong, that it was wrong for me, that it's wrong for this nation, no matter what laws allow. Fourth, to say that the abortion of millions of babies, which we as a nation have allowed and continue to allow in the name of family planning, is a crime against mankind and against God, and it is one that we as a nation will have to answer for. Although our country was founded under God's protection and on a bill which is supposed to protect the right of every individual to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, we have perverted those rights to the extent of permitting one person to decide whether another continues to live or not. The most frightening of all, we as a nation have been for the most part silent, afraid, or unwilling to speak up. I can no longer participate in the silence. I can no longer pretend that abortion does not disturb me greatly. No longer pretend that abortion is not killing. Which gets back to the original intent of this article, explaining why I left the TSC Board of Trustees. I found I could not continue to serve on the board without either compromising my values and beliefs or putting the college in an awkward position by my speaking out on issues about which I hold strong convictions. So I chose to leave and follow what I now see as a clear path for me. I am sure my convictions will offend some, perhaps many. That saddens me, not for myself, but that the state of this once great nation is such that we have come to condone the killing of the unborn and are now extending death upon demand to those in some sort of pain. What sort of torpidity prevents us from realizing the tragic error we are making? Is it that people are afraid to voice their opposition to abortion, supported as it is by the government? Or is it that the pressures exerted by our society have numbed us to the point of seeing nothing wrong with choosing convenience over life? In Germany, not too many years ago, similar arguments were heard for not speaking up in another situation. The results there were similarly tragic. As a result of admitting my mistake in having permitted the abortion of my child, I find not shame, although I am greatly saddened by my actions. Rather, I find a freedom I have not experienced since I was much younger and much more innocent. I no longer feel discomfort at contradicting what others still find acceptable. For the killing of the unborn is not acceptable. I hope this helps clarify for some why I felt the need to resign from the TSC board. It has been a long road getting to this spot. It has been difficult. I thank God that I am where I am. I hope He can find a good use for me.
By night they arrive in the land of the shifting sands. The baby, sleeping in the arms of his mother, who silently weeps. Her husband, his face drawn, worried, guides his little family, speaking few words. Suddenly the night silence is pierced by the wailing, the sobbing of the little child. He screams in pain, and the mother's every effort to console her baby cannot stop his violent crying. Unable to give comfort to this baby whom she loves so much, her heart breaks. Arab soldiers march in the still of the night, with orders to kill before the dawning of light. The children just born, lest one should be king. Screams of horror pierce the night with the sounds of killing. Anguished fathers, mothers, babes torn from the breast, left bleeding, lifeless in evil's quest, to extinguish that night, the world's one true light. So the babe far away screams in the night, oh baby Jesus, you come to us bearing your love. No room at the inn, no room in their hearts, no room for the child come with love. The doctors of death work night and day. In sterile procedures, they tear life away. from the child not yet born, so loved by the King. Screams of silence pierce the world that permits the killing. And the parents let their babies be torn from the womb. Hear the laughter of evil, the dumpster's their tomb. As Satan strikes out at the world's one true light, so a babe far away screams in the night, oh baby Jesus, you come to us bearing your love. No room at the inn, no room in their hearts, no room for the child come with love. Oh baby Jesus, you come to us bearing your love. No room at the inn, no room in our hearts, no room for the child come with love, no room for the child